Biden spent billions on COVID school relief, but schools have barely used any. What's happening to all that money? Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. COVID-19 sure messed things up, especially for kids in school. We went from telling kids to stop staring at screens to telling them to stare at screens for 8 hours a day. And kids are now failing across the country. It's hitting poorer kids the hardest. It's not just about grades, though. There's also a mental health crisis among U.S. teens. Clearly, kids and teens need help. And the U.S. government knows just what to do. Throw money at the problem. President Donald Trump signed 2 COVID stimulus bills that gave money to the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, ESSER for short. But President Joe Biden thought that wasn't enough. He added over $122 billion through his American Rescue Plan. Altogether, the federal government is giving schools $190 billion in COVID relief. Like Biden said, help is here.
My message is help is here. Help is here. Help is here for schools to purchase PPE, hire additional personnel like nurses, counselors, custodial staff, improve ventilation and sanitation, avoid devastating layoffs, and give students extra support. Help is here to help students make up for lost time and lost learning.
This is the most money the federal government has ever given to schools. For decades we've been told that America isn't spending enough on education. And now we finally are. I can't wait to see all the great things schools are doing with this desperately needed money. What's that, Shelley? Districts have yet to spend 93% of $122 billion sunk into the K-12 education system last year? Wait, they barely spent it? I thought this was desperately needed money. What's going on? And here's the even crazier part. If local districts don't spend or direct the funds by September 2024, the money will disappear from their budgets. So public schools have 2 years to spend more than $100 billion or they lose that money forever. It's like a nightmare version of Brewster's Millions. Only instead of a rich old uncle making you spend millions of dollars of his money, it's a rich old president making schools spend billions of dollars of our money. What could go wrong? I'll tell you after the break. Welcome back. Last year, President Biden gave out $122 billion in COVID relief aid for schools, but only 7% of that was actually spent. Why? Let's watch government bureaucracy in action. The federal government doesn't just give money directly to schools. The Department of Education gives it to state education agencies. Those agencies will give it to school districts. And before sending some of the money, the DOE also has to approve each state's plans for how they're going to use it. Some states didn't get that approval until this year. Other states didn't start giving money to schools until this year. So fine, this all takes time. Schools have to submit proposals, which get vetted by the states, which get vetted by the federal government. But do schools have enough money to function now? Don't worry. There's still a lot of money from the previous 2 stimulus packages. For example, the Los Angeles Unified School District is the nation's 2nd largest school district, and it's still trying to use up a few $100 million from earlier stimulus packages. You heard that right. Biden gave the schools more money when they hadn't even spent half of the previous stimulus money. Help is here. But like I said earlier, schools are feeling a lot of pressure to spend Biden's stimulus money right now. If schools don't spend the money by the deadline, it'll go back to the federal government. As if anyone would ever want to give money back to the government. They'd rather just buy. But there's a big problem for schools. Once they spend the money, it's gone, and they're not getting more. So schools are still having budget problems.
Minneapolis and St. Paul have budget gaps in the tens of millions of dollars next year. That's despite the districts getting hundreds of millions in emergency COVID relief from the federal government.
Schools are also struggling with how to spend this one-time amount. The federal government hasn't really told schools how to spend the money. The only real requirement is that 20% of the funds be used to make up for learning loss caused by the pandemic. How schools do that is up to them. Aside from that, schools can pretty much choose how to use the rest of the money as long as it's deemed reasonable and necessary. Well, that's incredibly vague. The federal government has given some suggestions, like schools can use the money to improve ventilation in buildings. Well, that makes sense for COVID. But schools can also use the money for roof repairs or fixing problems with lead, mold, radon, and asbestos. You know what? Kids are getting soft these days. When I went to school, we had lead, mold, radon, and asbestos uphill both ways. The government also suggests schools could spend the money on things like mental health services, hiring more teachers or raising their pay, new curriculums, summer school, and pre-K classes. The DOE also suggested the money could be used for crime prevention programs. There are almost too many different options for what to spend it on. The schools are like a kid with $50 in a candy store. You can't quite buy everything, but what do you choose? So what are the schools choosing to spend the money on? Are school districts making decisions that are actually helping students? I'll get to that after this final commercial break. Welcome back. The Biden administration gave billions of dollars to school districts with very vague instructions, which is why some analysts say there are not enough questions about how this money is being spent. What seems to matter now is not what's purchased, but why. As long as you can justify it as a reasonable and necessary COVID-related expense. Want to buy a new playground? Say it's for social distancing. A new track field? Social distancing. A new Ferrari? Totally social distancing. Are 20% of the funds going toward helping students catch up in school? We don't know. For example, in California, a majority of funds for learning loss was simply labeled other. In other cases, schools are spending millions on tutoring companies without proof their methods work. Who would have thought that giving schools lots of money to spend with a limited amount of time to spend it and without any measurements of success would be a bad idea? Some watchdog groups are saying that school districts are using federal funding for programs that aren't to help students catch up, but are programs they want to do anyway. For example, we talked before about the growing trend of critical race theory being taught in schools. Some school districts are using federal COVID relief money for critical race theory related programs like diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and anti-racism and anti-bias training for teachers. The Milwaukee Public School District wanted to spend $100,000 of federal money for anti-racism and bias professional development and a virtual Courageous Conversations exploration. That'll help students catch up in math. Another $880,000 went to hiring a director, coordinator, and planning assistant to maintain its Department for Women and LGBTQIA+ students. This is a huge problem with this government money. We don't know if it's actually helping students get a better education. Experts say there's no end goal, no objective, no common yardstick to measure whether this program is doing any good. We're just throwing money at the problem and hoping that it works somehow. So what do we do? Is there a way to solve this issue? Well, yes, we should be tracking the progress students are making. Marguerite Rosa, a research professor at Georgetown University, suggests tracking 4 things: reading, math, whether high schoolers are on track to graduate, and whether students are showing up and engaged. Schools are already supposed to be tracking these things, but the key is making sure the billions in federal money are helping students get better. If courageous conversations aren't helping students learn, stop throwing money at it. School districts should want to do this. Because this isn't Brewster's Millions, where they'll get even more money if they just spend it all on stupid stuff. This is Biden's billions. If schools waste $190 billion, they're never going to get this much money from the federal government again. So what do you think? Let us know in the comments below. And we could not make this show without support from viewers like you. You can help us for as little as $1 per episode at patreon.com/AmericaUncovered, or our exclusive censorship-free social media platform, americauncovered.locals.com. The links to both are in the description below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.